More cowbell.
Is the NBA on NBC. The 1998 NBA Finals.
Kills me.
That intro will never get old.
Never get old.
That's the greatest intro ever. Welcome back. This is Heat Check with Brandon and Greg, the world's only and first coast to coast news show.
That's right.
Never been done before, as you can see.
Done.
You see water on both screens because we see water from our houses, so it's only right. We took a break last week. We wanted to make sure this was right, and I think we got something good for you. As promised, we have our NBA awards for the 1920 season. Now, I guess I'll start by asking, do you think if they don't finish this season, they can actually give out any awards?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think that they're going to end up because there was talk about like awarding a champion, but I think that was just made up by Twitter trolls. Yeah. But in terms of like the rest of the awards, I see no issue with giving out MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, stuff like that. So yeah, I don't see why awards wouldn't be given out short of championships, but yeah, we'll see.
If you award a champion, does that mean you have to give like a finals MVP?
Probably. Just simulation. Whoever sounds best.
The 2K simulation of the finals
MVP
is nasty. I don't like that. All right, well, let's get right into it. Let's start with Rookie of the Year. I guess I'll preface this by saying that we both filled all of these awards out separately, and 99% of the awards were the exact same, which is pretty funny. So our Rookie of the Year went to Ja Morant. I think this one was pretty clear cut. I think Kendrick Nunn mentioned that he maybe should be in this conversation.
Tyler Hero did too.
I'm not mad at Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero, I think.
Yeah, no.
Probably second place, but.
Probably, obviously, like with the shortened season, or shortened Zion season, I guess we didn't really get the full picture. I think obviously had Zion had a full season, I think that we probably both would have been in favor of Zion for Rookie of the Year. But honestly, if Tyler Hero didn't get hurt, who knows if down the stretch he outplays Ja Morant. But yeah, I think at this point it's pretty obvious it's Ja Morant. So
more of a surprise, Heat being, I think they're the 3 or 4 seed, or the Grizzlies being the 8 seed? Because the Heat weren't expected to be this good. Like
I would say no, but they got Jimmy Butler. So I'd say the Grizzlies just because they're so young, and they play in the West, which is obviously like it's a tough conference. So I'd say probably the Grizz, but yeah.
I hope the fans can see your face when I was proposing that question, just how disrespectful you are.
Yeah,
that was a very valid question. You thought like so much spice was coming and nothing. It was just very mild.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then from there, let's go to who do you have for most improved?
Most improved, I had Bam Adebayo. I just think that he actually is like one of the. I think we've already touched on it earlier in a couple episodes ago, maybe. But like obviously Jimmy Butler was a huge part of the Heat success, but I think that the rise of Bam like was what made them the team made them the team that they are, and like made them competitive as they did, is having that dominant inside big man. I don't think anybody saw Bam really becoming the dominant big man that he is, right? Like before the season, if you were to ask who are the best big men in the league, Bam Adebayo just would not have been in that conversation. But I think now he certainly put himself there, at least for this year.
Yeah, I think especially what he was able to do defensively, it was incredible, the jump that he made.
Yeah,
probably more so than his offensive game. But when you look at how he was guarding, he was switching out on guards. And when he guards James Harden, Harden's percentages were low. When he guarded Giannis percentages were really low. So he just being and having a big man that could be that versatile of a defender and be a rim protector for you is just so vital, especially when you have another premier defender in Butler.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you have two kind of lockdown guys on your team. It allows you to hide and maybe hide certain players when the matchups aren't favorable. Obviously, they bring in Iguodala as well, who's known for his defense, if nothing else, at this point in his career. So, you just makes them really formidable, and I think they were kind of poised for a little bit of a run.
For
So
sure.
I agree there. So our most improved player, Bam Adebayo. From there, let's go to executive of the year. Here we also agree. We both went Sam Presti. I think for no other reason as maybe just Chris Paul.
I
They
would just
definitely
say
won that
for the
trade for sure.
yeah, I'd just say for getting themselves in the situation that they are, right? Like, obviously, it comes down to the players, but I think he did a really good job of bringing in the talent needed and the kind of attitude needed to take a team. Like, the Thunder have a really good record, and they're sitting, comfortably in the playoffs at this point. And the fact that that roster is doing that, if you were to say that same thing last year with the exits of Paul George and Russell Westbrook, like, it's a pretty impressive job. I think that also, like, obviously Steve Ballmer kind of gets a shout as well for making the Clippers what they were, what they are. But I do think that for sure Sam Presti, the job that he did with Oklahoma City is really impressive.
I would give the nod to Sam Presti here because I think that Ballmer's additions are a little bit more obvious into making
Yeah.
like you add Kawhi and Paul George, you're adding to the top
Right.
10, 15 players in the league. So
Right.
you're probably gonna get better in that sense. Obviously,
Hopefully.
that didn't work adding Paul George necessarily for the Thunder, but yeah, I think that they probably ended up winning that trade. They're the 7th seed. Nobody really saw them being in a position that they're in and being in the playoffs, and they're definitely one of the surprises of the season. And I think credit goes to Presti. When you lose, I mean, if you go over the last 2-3 years, they've lost. Or let's go even farther. Let's go last like 6 years. They've lost Kevin Durant. They've lost Serge Ibaka. They've lost James Harden. They've lost. He might be longer than 6 years, but they lost Paul George, Russell Westbrook. Like,
Yeah.
for them to still be a relevant team in any fashion is
Wildly impressive, especially at this point too. Like, it's not like it's been, it's not like it's been a full rebuild because they haven't had it, right? Like, this is supposed to be their rebuild, and the fact that they're at the point that they are, like, maybe it's, in the future we look back and maybe it's to the detriment of them, like, because they're not going to be as high in the draft order, obviously, but the fact that he has them this competitive is really impressive, certainly.
Yeah. All right, well, then we'll kind of move down the ladder just a little bit, and we will go to Coach of the Year.
Yeah, so we both agreed on this one as well. The fact that Toronto is as high as they are, even though it's the Eastern Conference and, it might not be as competitive, the fact that the Raptors lose Kawhi Leonard, get absolutely nothing in return, is really, really impressive, considering that they're still, I think at this point, second in the East. So, yeah, I mean, I think this, obviously, like, Pascal Siakam, like, he improved his game quite a bit, and he grew, and Kyle Lowry has certainly, done his part, but I think at a certain point it does come down to the coaching of the team, so that's why we went with Nick Nurse.
Yeah, they had a lot of injuries this year too, which was
Yeah.
interesting that they've been able to sustain. I mean, I know Lowry missed games. I know Dan Fleet missed games. I know Siakam missed games. So they've kind of been injured top to bottom, and they just kept it going.
Yeah, I think a shout out does is deserved for Frank Vogel as well, just because obviously, like, the Lakers are supposed to be good, right? Because they added Anthony Davis, but the fact that team gelled that quickly and is in the position that they are right now, I mean, it helps obviously when you have the best player in the world and you added an arguably top 5. Maybe that's a conversation for another day, but you add a player of Anthony Davis's, caliber then obviously you're going to be good, right? But the fact that they are as cohesive as a unit and as they've been playing as well as they have, I think certainly a nod to Frank Vogel.
Yeah, I think Pelinka could maybe get a little bit of a nod here too for that roster organization as well. They did a really good job of getting some supplementary pieces for Braun and them, but
Yeah,
they're still not that good when Braun goes off the floor. So I think a lot of that credit goes to just how great LeBron is. And so I know you can't speak enough about him, but we're not that type of show, so we're gonna keep it pushing. Let's go to defensive player of the year because I think this one is going to surprise a lot of people with the direction that we went. Obviously, this one we didn't agree on, but we decided on your pick. So why don't you give us a little bit more information for the casual fan that might not have seen our pick?
Yeah, so like obviously I'm a Celtics fan, but I think I can even take bias out of it and say Marcus Smart's a defensive player of the year. He guarded all 5 positions all year long, and I think was really, really effective, especially, even though the Celtics don't have a huge, their big men is not the focal point of that team or really even a strong part of that team. And I think defensively that could have really impacted them, but Marcus Smart switches on everything. And it doesn't matter, size, position, place on the floor that the players are playing. If they needed a defender to go to somebody in particular, like he was their, specialized defender. And I think that he certainly proved himself over the course. Like you have a guard at that size guarding big men, it's tough to not as effectively as he was. It's kind of tough to not give him the nod, really.
Yeah, I think this is one of those awards that we just kind of lean towards the center, and we just love to give this to.
You got Gobert, right? You got Giannis, obviously, is a defensive threat. And Bam, like you said, Bam's fantastic as well. But
yeah, I mean, I like this one because I think it speaks to someone's individual defensive efforts more so than I think some of the other picks can, right? Because it's like those are more obvious picks. Those are people like Gobert's won defensive player of the year already. And players like Kawhi, when you have guards, I think it's very difficult for a guard to win defensive player of the year. I want to say it's only happened once, but I didn't fact check that. And the only reason I say that because I think it's Gary Payton.
Jordan won it.
I guess I was thinking point guard. Never mind.
Oh yeah,
Scratch that.
I can't remember point guards winning in the last year. Certainly, recent memory. It's gone to a big man.
So again, I think that when you have a guard that, like you said, can switch to all 5 positions, like I think you have to reward that, and so we did.
Yep, for sure.
All right. This one's probably going to be the biggest shocker, but for MVP, we went with Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, best player on the best team right now. I think LeBron should get a lot of credit and looks, but I think that recency bias is also playing into it because LeBron at the end of the, right before the lockout or not the lockout, but the pause, was playing really, really well, and the Lakers were clicking on all cylinders. And I think that you can't really discredit Giannis for what he's done to this point. And the Bucks are the best team, and he is certainly the best player on that team, and that's kind of the metric that has been used over the last few years. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think giving it to Braun would have been giving it to Dame when he had that silly 6-game stretch that he went where he got hurt. So LeBron obviously is great. LeBron obviously is probably deserving of more than just 4 MVPs. Unfortunately for him, I think that if you look at a shortened season especially, there's just not enough to catch Giannis. I think he might have had an outside shot if they could have got to the best record somehow. But, I think it would just take away from what Giannis is doing. He's been incredible all season. He's arguably could be the defensive player of the year as well, whereas I don't think you could throw Braun into that category, just because he doesn't necessarily prioritize that at this point in his career. So that is that. And now let's move to a moment of the year. So this for us was a moment that just kind of stood out, and that I think will be one of the more memorable moments, and something that people will look back at as potentially a turning point for the league in terms of this time. So for moment of the year, we went with the All-Star game. I did the All-Star game. Greg went with the fourth quarter. But yeah, this potentially saved the All-Star game.
For sure. I mean, if you look at if you listen to the players and if you watch the game, it was just played at another level that we haven't seen in All-Star games, at least recently. Certainly that I haven't seen, right? Because past years it's just been running up the score as much as possible, like letting players shoot, just like fun dunks, which is fun, but it's just kind of fun, like seeing, the rules that were implemented, obviously, to honor Kobe, right? Like seeing those rules implemented, and then you just saw like these, the best players in the game, their kind of their competitive edge flip, and all of a sudden it turned into like, we need to win this game.
Giannis was playing hard the whole game. Like Giannis.
Yeah, and but just that fourth, like defense, like hard defense is being played. It was team bat, like it was really fun to watch. So yeah. I think they liked it so much that they're talking about like keeping that as a thing moving forward, which I absolutely think they should.
They would be crazy not to do that again.
It'd be crazy not to do it.
No commercials in the fourth, and I think it was like almost an hour of just like straight like game time with no cuts. That's what you want when you're sitting at home and you're enjoying a game. And to be honest with you, when you go to these games too, like when you have these commercial breaks, the commercial breaks are fine when you're at home, but when you're at the game, the commercial breaks seem like they take forever. So
for sure.
I'm sure that even the environment and being in the building there, it was just that much.
Oh yeah, it had to have been electric, right? Like,
yes. So shout out to them. I think the runner-up here is Zion's debut. He went nuts in his debut. I think we watched this at Buffalo Wild Wings, and we left after the third quarter, and then he hits like 17 threes in a row, and they come back and make it a game. So just really unfortunate that he got hurt at the beginning of the year, and then also being on the minutes restriction early, because I think he had a real chance to win that game for them. And, obviously he couldn't finish the game because of the minutes restriction. So even though he hit 4 threes in a row and was clearly hot and they had all the momentum, you kind of had to take the wind out of their sails by bringing them out. So tough one there. But, yeah. So I want to just go back just a second. I fact checked. Gary Payton is the only point guard to win Defensive Player of the Year. So shout out to Gary Payton. If you're listening, we would love to have you on. No, you wouldn't love to have him on? Dang. No respect.
If he wants to come on, he's welcome anytime.
You'd skip your morning golf if Gary Payton's coming on?
Sure.
All right. Good to know. All right. Let's go first team, all heat, first team. I forget what I called it. First team, all NBA. Who'd you have?
Yeah, we had Bron, Giannis, Harden, Damian Lillard, and Nikola Jokic. I think the first two are really self-explanatory, right? Like Bron and Giannis. Harden was averaging 36, I think.
He's down to 34.4.
Slacking. And then Damian Lillard, I think, has probably been the best point guard this year.
Yep.
Aside from LeBron James, I guess. And then Jokic, I think, has been the best center, like pure center in the league. So I think the way he was playing also, once he dropped those pounds, I think he was certainly kind of bringing the Nuggets wherever he was going. So I think that's the first team.
I got to see him over the summer, Jokic that is, and he looks like sometimes he's just uninterested in playing basketball, and so that's his biggest.
It's his demeanor, but like I don't know, it's not like he actually is, right? Like it's just his demeanor.
In this game specifically, he didn't score until the third quarter. So
Maybe he was uninterested.
Yeah, he was. It was like a 5th place game, so
Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't a top priority for him.
No.
All right, I'll go second team. We went with Kawhi, Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis, Luka Doncic, and Bam Adebayo. Bam getting second team nods, so I think that that just kind of speaks to what we mentioned earlier with him getting most improved and how much he jumped this season. And I think if you take away some of the poor stretches of play that the Heat had, where they were losing to some bad teams, and they weren't really playing well after the All-Star break as well.
Once Jimmy went down, I think they just kind of stopped. Their edge kind of dropped.
Yeah, and then Tyler Hero got hurt as well.
Yep.
So I think that stretch actually hurt him. I think he if you eliminate some of that and maybe avoid those injuries, I think he's in the running for first team somewhere. It's probably between him and Jokic, like whether they flip flop or not. But they got hurt and they lost those games, so second team it is. You disagree?
Yeah, wholeheartedly. That's all right.
No. You gotta go a little more.
I mean, I just don't.
You don't think if they were like
I think Bam Adebayo is a great player, but I just don't think that I think of the second team players, I don't think he's the first, second, or third one that would jump into the first team. I don't think he's
Luka's first, but he's not passing
Luka, AD, or Kawhi. Like it's a toss up between the three.
I was just thinking that if you're going big man, replacing a big man,
then I would still take Anthony Davis over Bam in a heartbeat. But that's just me.
What if the Heat were second in the East and had the second best record in the league?
Do not care.
All right, you just hating now. All right, give us your third team.
Third team, shout out Jason Tatum. Go C's. So Tatum, Jimmy Butler, Chris Paul, Trae Young, and then Joel Embiid were my 5. For third team, I think Trae Young is honestly could have snuck into the second team if the Hawks weren't as terrible as they are, but they don't have a great record. And I think that they're definitely playing for the future at this point. But I do think that Trae Young is one of the best guards in the league. Chris Paul, I mean, his numbers might not be as insane, but the fact that he's got the Thunder to where they are, really, like I think that's certainly warranted. Or a third team All-NBA would be warranted for Chris Paul at this point.
Who's better, Chris Paul or Trae Young right now?
Different players.
Who would you take on? If Kemba goes down and you have to get one of those two, who are you taking?
Chris Paul, probably.
That's the right answer.
All right.
This is going to be the only year I'm going to give Trae Young a pass for not playing any defense.
All right, if he's listening, he won't get a pass from Brandon next year.
He won't. He's not getting on the too hot to handle 13.
Yeah.
Dang. Did you watch wrestling as a kid?
No.
Oh, dang. All right, never mind. The reference would be lost on you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've gone through all of our mainstream awards. Now we're going with our Heat Check specific awards. So I'm going to start with Heating Up. This is 5 players that are under 25 that we want you to watch out for in the next season. So we've mentioned Bam a bunch. Bam is going to get on this list. Easy. As a Celtics fan, we couldn't get out here without putting Tatum on there, but he just barely made it. I'm just kidding. He's really good. Is he the best player on the Celtics?
Yeah.
Okay. We mentioned OKC with Sam Presti and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's nice. Like I got to see him live in when they played the Nets, and like his game is just so smooth.
He's legit. And I think that because he was with the Clippers before, and I think that being able to get Shai in that in that deal from Paul George. Like I think that was massive. And he was, you know, a budding, I don't want to say star, but he was certainly a budding young, you know, talented player that had potential with the Clippers. And I think that he's just kind of developed upon that. And I think that, you know, the next step for this Thunder team would be kind of Chris Paul almost starting to let Shai Gilgeous-Alexander kind of take the reins, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, Chris Paul's like what, $40 million next year, so like
that, yeah.
You gonna give the reins to somebody else? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I think that he's got to. I mean, obviously, Chris Paul knows that he's not in the prime of his career anymore, so
right.
I think he showed some good leadership, which I think that people started to think that he might not have had. He kind of got a bad rap over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So I think this quarantine period has actually done him a little good reputation wise as well. With
Chris
him
Paul?
with him getting on the lives with different people and like staff and things like that,
sure.
and Dwayne Wade. So I know he mentioned that like he didn't realize what he had with Blake Griffin until kind of afterwards, and he respects Blake Griffin's game a little bit more now. So I think he's doing a little damage control. But I think it started with just letting his game talk for him. So that's good.
Yeah, for sure.
But I really liked him when he was on the Hornets, and I didn't like him on the Clippers. Moving forward, we had Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball really seemed to start to find his game with the Lakers. He played 99 games and had 993 points, 631 assists, 611 rebounds, and 5 20-point games in 56 games this year with the Pelicans. 695 points, 392 assists, 348 rebounds. He had 7 20-point games. In March, he was averaging 20.8, 7.8 rebounds, and 7.8 assists, shooting 51% from three. So he seemed to really figure it out, and him and Giannis is a lot of fun to watch. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't matter who it is when you're throwing full court alley-oops. Like, it's just entertaining. Like,
yeah, him and Zion. Yeah, it's gonna be. I think of the players currently that the Pelicans have, I think that he is the one, like Lonzo is the one that's going to be, I don't want to say damaged, but like it's going to, I don't think that his numbers are going to take as much of a hit as maybe like Brandon Ingram's from, you know, Zion being there. So I think that those two just, their games kind of complement each other. And it helps when you can just kind of throw it anywhere near the rim. And just,
which will be interesting because Lonzo has one more year left on his deal. So obviously they're going to be forced to pay Ingram.
Yeah, David Griffin has some decisions to make for sure.
Ingram is the 5th player on our list as well, and he took a pretty big jump this year. Obviously, you know, not being under LeBron anymore allowed him to really grow.
I think getting out of the LA spotlight as well.
So that was good for him. So yeah, like the Pelicans, that you probably have to pay Ingram, and then I think Lonzo works so well with Zion that you probably have to overpay Lonzo a little bit as well. So hopefully they don't get too struck. But
yeah, just a quick note on that list as well. We left Trae Young, Zion Williamson, and Luka Doncic out just because like that would be kind of boring. So
yeah, that's Tatum is probably in that category as well, but
he's close to it, yeah, for sure.
That would be a little bit of recency bias as his kind of jump that he made where he was kind of going crazy was
towards the end of the year for sure.
Towards the end of the year, so we left him on. Next, we got hot on the spot. These are 5 players you want on the court in the last 5 minutes of the game. So who you not subbing for the All-Star game?
Yeah, I mean this isn't like necessarily like if you had a 5, like a starting 5 out there, but it's just like 5 players that you want with the ball in their hands, right?
Yes.
So we had Bron, Tatum, Damian Lillard, Kawhi, and Luka. And I don't really think much needs to be said on any of their parts. Like they've been, you know, just playing real well, especially at the end of the game. Like for a lot of them, that's when their time to shine is. So yeah, and they've all closed out games, a number of games this year, pretty much on their own. So
Kawhi and Tatum, your mid-range killers, Luka and LeBron, they kind of do it all. And you can ask Houston and the Thunder about Dame Lillard in the
Yeah, that's right.
So, we'll keep it moving. A little heat left. These are players 32 and older that prove that they aren't washed or as washed as the media portrayed them to be. And we went with the Banana Boat crew. So we got Chris Paul, LeBron James, and Carmelo Anthony.
I mean, I don't think anybody thought LeBron was particularly washed, but the fact that he is either a leading or, the second MVP favorite, depending on who you ask, like at this point, age, or year 17 it is, like that's wildly impressive. And I think, I don't think anybody expected him to quite be playing this well. And then Chris Paul obviously kind of has resurrected his image and has proved that he is a winner as opposed to what people thought. In Houston, he is proven that he is a dog. And
he's
then
a dog. I don't know about a winner, but he's a dog.
I mean, yeah, but you know what I mean. And then Melo obviously isn't having as good a season as either of them, but he was out of the league for a year, right? And people thought he's been done for the last 3 years, maybe 3, maybe 4. So the fact that he came back, earned a spot for the whole year, permanent contract, all of his Trailblazer teammates talk about him really highly. I think that Melo certainly has proven that he can still play at the top level.
Yeah, he's been good. I'm really glad Portland picked him up because even if you thought he was done or he was washed, like he wasn't as bad as I think people were making him out to be.
Yeah.
He was better than some of the people that were getting picked up, and
for sure.
I think it was just more of a perception of this idea that he didn't want to come off the bench and yada yada yada. So I'm glad to see that, and he came back and he was playing really well for them. Obviously that team kind of underperformed a little bit, but he was pretty consistent throughout the year. Him and Dame, they had some injuries to McCollum and all of their bigs. Nurkic just still never came back because the season ended, obviously. But
yeah,
but yeah, they were potentially going to be an 8 seed, and that would have been a difficult out for the Lakers.
For sure.
Yeah, because Dame was going to eat up whoever they had at guard. Next we have hot off the truck. So these are the best contracts in the NBA for teams based on how players are producing. LeBron made the list again. He's the 6th highest paid player in the league. And over the next 2 years that he drops in that position, and with him being second in the MVP and probably still the best player in the league, for him to be, potentially fall out of the top 10 in highest paid players at the end of this contract, I think
it's crazy. Yeah,
that's a steal. And then the next 3, they're young guys. So when you get a star or someone that can become a star on their rookie deal,
on a rookie deal, yeah,
that's always beneficial. And honestly, is probably the best window for the teams to build the best team around these players, because obviously they deserve the money that they make and they deserve these max deals that they get. But if you get, Tatum, Doncic, and Zion on rookie deals, you have a lot of money to then go spend on other players at that point. And that's probably some of the best teams that you can build around them.
For sure.
Without you bring in another superstar, yeah, but, now you're kind of strapped for cash and you have just to fill out with minimum guys. So, they have Porzingis also with the Mavs and things like that. And Tatum has a nice team around him with Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. And dang, Gordon Hayward, I can't believe is the 7th person I think of when I think of the Celtics. But
seriously, yeah.
But yeah, those 3 just, I think already stars, if not superstars, in the case of Doncic, and probably Zion, if not.
Probably. If not now, 6 months from now, then yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of media superstardom at the moment, but I mean,
stupid.
Dude is box office for sure.
Yeah.
And what was his streak of 20-point games? I think it was.
I don't even remember the streak. I
think he set the record.
80% of the shots he either makes or gets his own rebound. It's stupid.
It's goofy. That's a big boy. Nobody enjoys guarding him. Anthony Davis, when they played the second time, was like, "Nah, I'm good. load management.
That's right.
All right, next we have our hot seat. So this is the players with the most pressure to win the next 2 seasons.
So I went with Giannis. I know Brandon put LeBron as one of his, but for me, it's really just Giannis because if he doesn't win, like let's say the Bucks finish again with the best regular season, and let's say they don't, for whatever reason, they don't get to the finals even, like that's a huge knock on, we'll get to the coach in a second, but that's a huge knock on Giannis's reputation as well, right? Like he can perform really well in the regular season. He's obviously, 7 foot whatever he is, just monster truck, but he can't, when teams start playing hard defense and don't let you in the paint, like what can you do? So I think if Giannis doesn't win soon or at least get to the finals, and I think his reputation's on the line, and someone else is I think kind of already on the line or maybe even past the line to an extent. But if James Harden doesn't win with the Rockets, then I just don't think that he's looked at as nearly as good a player as he probably is. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron James is on here for a very different reason than Giannis for me. It's just that in the next 2 years, you got year 18 and 19. And at some point, he can't be the best player in the league anymore. So, it's just, I mean, he's doing things that we've never seen done before this late in someone's career. But it's just like, I think that if he can't win it, and then, I mean, Anthony Davis can technically opt out of his contract this year. So, yeah, in the case where Anthony Davis leaves, it's like, all right, now that probably would leave some of this pressure. But if Anthony Davis resigns, like, and you were as hot as you were this year, and we both think that they probably would have won, I think that it's just pressure because you're gonna run out of opportunities to.
See, I think he'd be under a lot more pressure if the season were to finish this year and and the Lakers didn't win. So let's say the Bucks won, let's say the Clippers won, whoever wins. If it's not the Lakers this year, then yeah, I think the next few years, if LeBron James has Anthony Davis, he resigns. And you have the organizational setup that the Lakers do right now, and you don't win, then yeah, I think the fact that you go to the Lakers, and you want to cement your legacy, and you're the one Laker great that hasn't won, I think that's an issue. But I think where the league is suspended this year, like I think that takes LeBron's pressure not off, but like a little bit, because everybody kind of anticipated them to win, right? Like Trae Young, can't remember what he said it on, but he was essentially like, yeah, pretty much I'd bet the house on the Lakers because nobody was stopping LeBron this year, right? Like it was pretty widely, at least I'm not going to say known, but it was widely anticipated that they would at the very least be title contenders, like heavy title contenders. So a lot of people like myself, I thought the Lakers were winning for sure. So you have that kind of to fall back on if you're not LeBron James, but if you're like a LeBron James stan, I guess, that you see this year as be like, well, we would have won. He would have won. It is what it is. Now he's in his 18th year. Like it's kind of tough to ask him to do the same thing. So like I think this pause in the season kind of, depending on how it finishes out, obviously this is under the assumption that it doesn't finish, but if it does and they don't win, then maybe, the pressure he's under is increased, but I think that it honestly might have taken some pressure off.
Yeah. I think the only reason I didn't put Harden in there is because I think their team got worse this year, so I don't think that anyone thought they were going to be a
7 center. It's just not a recipe for success.
I wonder if they pick somebody up over the offseason. That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think they have to.
Yeah. All right. Well, kind of going in that vein, let's go coaches that need to win the next 2 seasons. You went with D'Antoni.
I did go with D'Antoni, yeah, for sure.
Speaking of the Rockets,
yeah, Mike. I think that just because, right, like the whole thing has been, between the Rockets owner and Daryl Morey, the whole like threes and dunks that whole play style. Does it work? Does it work? Does it work? Does it work? And at some point, somebody's going to need to take the blame for it not working, right? It can't just be, well, the numbers, statistics of it. It was highly unlikely that we missed 27 straight threes, right? Like I think it's just somebody takes the blame. And I think if D'Antoni can't win a championship with the Rockets with a player like Harden, and when he's been giving the supporting cast that he has been, right? Like they gave him Chris Paul, they gave him Russell Westbrook. If he can't win with and they took away Clint Capella, but if they can't win with that, then I think that he's kind of under pressure. Like he's going to start to face scrutiny. I think more so than Daryl Morey at this point.
I think Harden gets a pass because people don't like watching him. So he doesn't get the same treatment, right? Because think about Chris Paul. The knock on Chris Paul forever was that he couldn't make it to the conference finals. He had never gotten to the conference final, and they finally get there and they lose, right? So it's that seemed to be knocking him, but that never was. I mean, I guess Harden.
It's almost like James Harden, right? Like the strengths he has and how he's utilized is not almost certainly, but there's a strong assumption that the reason that they're not getting that far is because the way they play the way they do, right? And James Harden is utilized, but it's not like James Harden, maybe he is, but my guess is it's not like James Harden is saying, I'm taking 55 shots a game, nobody can stop me. It's there has to be some kind of encouragement or influence from the coaching staff that says, no, we're giving James Harden. And that's been pretty widely documented that D'Antoni was brought in and his immediate thing was, I'm making James Harden the point guard, similar to what he did with Nash. And he was going to use him similar to how he used Nash. And I just think that James Harden almost gets a pass because of the system that he plays in, even though that's benefiting him.
Yeah. He goes into the game thinking, I'm going to shoot 55 free throws. It's not shots. Yeah, so, I mean, I agree with that. The coach that I went with was whoever has to coach the Nets next, but we don't know who that is. So I'll go with Doc Rivers over Budenholzer just because I think Kawhi has one more year under contract for sure. And I believe the same is true for Paul George. So they could both opt out after this next season.
I think it's after next year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So after the next season, they could both opt out. And I think Kawhi has shown that he's going to go where he wants to go, and he's going to do things on his timeline. And this was the first season that we saw Kawhi get physically upset with people and really there was I forget what the play was where he throws a bounce pass to somebody who should be getting a layup and the ball goes out of bounds because the guy had stopped and spread out to the 3-point line, and he was threw a little fit on the court. And so
yeah.
And I think the Clippers to some extent went through periods where they kind of underperformed for what they thought and what people thought and expected of them. So I think that if Kawhi decides this isn't working, I'm going somewhere else, because they haven't won or they didn't make it to a championship, I think that puts a lot of pressure on Doc Rivers, especially because he's a pretty good coach. Got the Celtics won.
Yeah.
He finally decided that he wasn't a good coach GM, and so now he's just coaching and do his thing. So
yeah, I think that there is some form of pressure under or Doc Rivers is under some form of pressure, but I think kind of the Mike Budenholzer thing is really interesting as well because if I remember correctly, he had the Hawks as the first seed in the East at one point. When they had Kyle Korver and
Horford and all that.
Yeah, DeMar Carroll, I think, was on that team as well. They weren't a great Al Horford. They weren't a great team, but they were the first
65 games, something like that.
I think they were the best team in the East.
Yeah.
And then he goes to Milwaukee, right? And once again, they're a dominant regular season team, but they couldn't make the adjustments last year in the playoffs. And if they can't do that again, then what does that say about Budenholzer as a coach, right? Especially with, Giannis.
Free agency looming.
Situation. We'll see.
Yeah, his pressure comes because he has Giannis, and Giannis is going to be a free agent. I think that's where more of his pressure comes.
His
think it's clear he's a good
pressure is,
coach.
can he convince Giannis that they can win with him at the helm?
Exactly. And so it's either that or can they convince Giannis, and does Giannis want to stay, and then he gets fired and they get somebody else, right?
Yep.
So I think his is kind of more directly tied to Giannis rather than his ability to kind of coach a team up. And with that, I think that's a perfect transition to our next and final part of our hot seat segment here with star or superstar player most likely to leave and or be traded. And no surprise here, we went with Giannis and Kawhi. I think we both agreed on Giannis. I went with Kawhi, similar to what I just mentioned. You know, he can opt out after next season and, you know, go play with the Lakers if he wants or anyone else. So,
Yeah.
I think he's shown with his, I mean, he was in a perfect situation in San Antonio, right? You're the guy, they've, you know, let you run the team, you know, they've designed it around you and they didn't handle his injury correctly or how he wanted it to be. And so he left and won a championship with Toronto. So, I think, you know, if he's not happy and he wants to leave, then he's going to leave.
He's proving that he'll go where he wants to go. Yeah. Kind of, I think like Anthony Davis also is in this conversation, but I think that we're both under the same kind of assumption that he's not going anywhere, even though like there's talks about, oh, does he go back to Chicago, back home? Does, you know,
I don't think he wants
I
to
just,
go Lauri Markkanen.
yeah, I just don't really see him leaving the situation that they're in right now.
Him and Zach LaVine could be nice.
I think if he had played this year and he had seen like LeBron regress heavily, then maybe he considers. But like, I just don't think you can leave the situations you're in right now. And they're, you know, they're gonna bring the Brinks truck. So, I think we're both in the assumption that Anthony Davis not leaving.
Yeah, no, I don't think he is either. Especially not to Chicago.
Yeah.
You know, but we'll see. Okay, next we got Too Hot to Miss. This is our best player in the 2020 draft that should be taken number one no matter what. We disagreed here and then agreed. So I think we both don't necessarily have a clear-cut number one. I wanted to say like a Luka Doncic, but he didn't even go number
But
one. He went like 5.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, he went 3 and he got traded to 5. Anyway, but I think we came to a consensus on just kind of best upside and probably the most versatile to go to any team that would be drafting in that position. And we went with LaMelo Ball. Now, I am a big Baller Brand fan, but this was Greg's pick, so I'll let him do it. I'll let him talk it through.
Yeah. So like, there are a couple players in this draft that are like considered to be upper echelon, right? Like Anthony Edwards is like he's talked about and James Wiseman's talked about, even though we saw like a small sample size. And even like players like Therese Halliburton, like there are good players in this draft, certainly. To me though, like I don't see a clear cut number one of this draft. There's no like slam, like last year, like Zion was a slam dunk, right? And it's a little unprecedented because like Zion, obviously there hasn't been someone like him for a while. But even still, like this, like reminds me of drafts where there just hasn't been like a great, truly great player, and I could be proved wrong. But I think of those players that have, you know, played and that we've seen, I think LaMelo Ball, like he's gonna bring, you know, the revenue in just off name alone. And he's proven in a pro league. It's not the NBA, but he's proven in a pro league that he can, you know, hoop. So, and the fact that he's so young and has shown so much growth in the last few years, like I think at this point it's just, you know, you're gonna get a playmaker who is, you know, proven his ability to handle the ball, score the ball, pretty much anything you ask for over New Zealand. So, yeah,
Australia. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about his game is that he's a playmaker and, you know, he's not afraid to shoot the ball. So his shot selection could use work. But like you mentioned, like he's been playing in the Pro League in Australia. You know, he went to a bad team for sure, but, you know, he had them in some games, and he had a couple of triple doubles, and he kind of took over some games late. So I think that when you're playing against men and adults, it's just different, right? Like there's a jump from college to the NBA, and I think the jump for him is going to be a little bit smaller because he's gone to a pro league, and Australia is probably the second or third best league in the world. Probably Spain is probably two. So he's not playing against scrubs. And then say what you will about his time in Lithuania, but that's also another professional league. And
He was also 16, so
he was 16, right? So he just has professional experience across the world. He also showed up to the Drew League and was balling in the Drew League. So
and he's proven enough that he's legit. And at this age, I think that's kind of spooky. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we went with him.
Yep.
I think the Warriors will probably have the number one pick, and they're probably going to go Anthony Edwards, but they should go LaMelo Ball because he's got the heat check. Too hot to miss. Stamp of approval. You don't like it?
Love it.
You don't like our stamp?
Stamp of approval.
Okay, well, we'll wrap it up. This segment it will probably be better in later years, but this one is our lukewarm segment where we look at the top 3 picks and we kind of say like, oh, this is where they should have been drafted, or this is who should have been drafted in those positions. However, this year the first 2 got it right. I think the Pelicans were 100%
First time in a while.
Zion. I think Ja Morant is going to win Rookie of the Year, so definitely right at number 2. But the Knicks messed up, and I'm sure they were still in shock of not getting that first pick and being able to get Zion.
Yeah.
So they just threw.
But it's the Knicks, so what can you expect?
Just threw some at the wall and hope it stuck. So they went with R.J. Barrett, who was okay, I guess.
Yeah, I think to be fair to him, I think he's in kind of a tough spot because he's not a scorer or a playmaker in the sense that like Ja is, right? Like Ja, when he has the ball, like he's going to create shots on his own. He's going to, be electric and score on his own. And I think that like RJ Barrett has some of that, but I think he is also like just going to be, I don't know that Ben Simmons is the right word, but like it's almost kind of like he's more that style where like he can do his thing, but it's his biggest strength is his playmaking ability and getting other people involved. And I think that, on the Knicks currently, like that's just not existent even a little bit. So I think that he kind of got a little bit of a raw deal. And I think that's one, like you said, like we'll see how it plays out in the end, but
yeah, I think out of the 3 that we just mentioned, I think he was the more like need time to develop in the league player.
And he was in the worst situation.
And went to the worst situation. So again, this is another time where we just kind of agreed, which is so interesting when we just agree in the way that we did. We said at number 3, if they had to do it over again, they're taking Tyler Hero.
Yeah.
He's a dog. He's not afraid to take a big shot. I saw this man catch a ball and run backwards to the 3-point line to take a 3, which is one of these like, yeah, if you ever shoot this and miss, you're just getting cut on the spot. Like, don't even come to the locker room type deals. And he hit it. And so he's not afraid of the moment. And so
yeah, I think that Brandon Clark also deserves a shout out too from the Grizzlies because like he's played really, really well as well. And he's been kind of complimented by Ja, but I think of rookies this year, he's certainly one of the best as well. So yeah, for sure. But I think that Tyler Hero, like I think he's like perfect for Miami like that.
That's true.
It's like he screams Miami, but
him and Jimmy get along really well.
I could also see him, in the New York spotlight. So
he kind of has that like I have the NBA fashion deal too, so that him in New York I think would be a good fit. And you can never go wrong with shooters.
That's right.
Who's the best shooter on the Heat? Duncan
Robinson.
or Tyler?
Duncan Robinson. Shout out Maine.
You're just saying that because he's from Maine.
Also, because I think he's got like the third most threes in the league. He's legit. He's legit.
Yeah, he
Undrafted.
can shoot. He can shoot. We saw it firsthand. He can shoot.
Yeah. Went a little cold at the end of that game, but
That's all right. That's
started
how you
off on
start.
right.
All right. Well, that's it for our award show. I hope you enjoyed it. We're looking to, find ways to continue to bring content. Hats off to you. Good job. This is the first ever coast to coast award show ever done and ever created or ever thought of. So, we're really breaking the boundaries of what we can do content wise for you guys.
We do what we can.
We're gonna continue to try to bring you content. I know next week the Jordan doc will end, so we'll definitely spend time giving our recap on that and what we thought about it. So you can expect that moving forward. And then, if basketball doesn't come back in any shape or form, maybe we'll give you the Bundesliga since that's coming back at the end of the month. The range, But yeah, so that's a wrap. Thanks again for listening. If you listen this far, thanks again for watching. If you watch this, we appreciate you guys. We love it. We love doing it. So,
yes, sir.
Time.